like to bring the meeting to order of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force and the Law and Justice Council for August 19th, 2024. We have a really interesting agenda today, I believe, and need full participation from everybody here. Before I read the land acknowledgement, I just want to also acknowledge that Holly O'Neill and Marty Solomon are joining us today and will be continuing to do so for some time to come. I would love to have you guys introduce yourselves, but let me read the land acknowledgement first, and then not everybody knows you and the fine work that you've done with us in the past. And so think about that for a moment, and I'm going to begin the land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semyamu people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. I just want to do a little check. Again, I am in a tiny little bay in BC. Is my internet okay? Is everybody hearing me? Oh, very good. Okay. Holly and Marty, welcome back. And would you just give us a little update on who you are, what you're doing, and when you were with us before, what you did?
Sure. Great. Good morning, everybody. I'm Holly O'Neill, and Marty Solomon and I had the privilege of getting to work with the county on first the needs assessment for this project, and then developing the implementation plan, which included many of you. And so for those of you who I haven't met yet, it's really a pleasure to get to work with you on this next phase. And yeah, Marty and I have been doing facilitation work and public engagement work for the last, it's going on 25 years now. And so it's really exciting to get to be able to take this plan and help support you guys in moving it forward. So glad to be here. Marty?
Hi, great to see you all. And it was a sincere pleasure to work with very many of you on those past phases of this work. And yeah, very excited to be back with you and taking this next step.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's see, let's go to item number 2, the amendment to the IPRTF 2024 annual report. There was an update needed, as I understand it. It was in your packet for you to read. My understanding is that between the time that the material was submitted and the time that we voted on it and it went to council, there were some changes that were important for Stark and Maya to update. And so those updates happened, and we need to have a vote on it. Maya or Jill, do you have any more background that you'd like to report on before we take a vote to amend?
I don't see Maya here with us yet. I don't have anything additional to report. If the IPRTF approves these amendments, I will make the change and resubmit to the county council.
Very good. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion on the matter? Birdie, you're muted.
Okay.
I could give just a little bit of background from having attended the meeting where Maya presented the need for this. And what developed between the time the report was originally written and now is they got access to more detail about the potential impact on the county. And if this were to pass by the state Supreme Court, as you can see by reading the amendment, it will have a very significant economic impact on the county. And because of that, they thought that it was important to include it in the report that was due in June, just to make people aware of what could be down the pike.
Very good. Thank you for the background, Bertie. I appreciate it. Any other discussion before we take a vote? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signal aye by raising your hand, virtually or otherwise. And any opposed? Take down all those hands there. Okay. Oh, Jill, do I call for abstentions?
Yes, please.
Or any? Yes. Are there any abstentions? All right. Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. And on to item number 3. Heather, do you have anything you'd like to say before we move on to 3 and handing things over to Holly to facilitate this process?
Thank you, Peter. Sure. I would love to share that I'm really excited about this agenda topic. Thank you for joining today. Peter and I thought that it would be a good time to just refresh on what exactly is in the Justice Implementation Plan, considering that the IPRTF has been asked and is positioned to provide oversight and accountability and policy recommendations and ongoing involvement with the implementation plan. So that was the thinking behind these 3 key questions that we've asked Marty and Holly to help us through conversation today, to help us identify who exactly is working on the different projects so that the IPRTF knows who to call on to ask for information appropriately, and then what projects are aligning with different committees of the IPRTF to help organize our work and structure our agendas to be supportive to the county in making progress on this plan. So that's a little background for why is this on the agenda and how is it showing up, and it's all to help us just build that foundation of working together and shared understanding of what is the work to do. So with that, unless you have anything to add, Peter, I just welcome Marty and Holly and their fabulous facilitation skills. Can't say how grateful I am to have both of you here, especially to help with conversations like this that are really big and meaty and exciting.
You said it perfectly. Thank you. And Holly, we talked about our time for this meeting, and usually we should leave 10 minutes for public comment. Committee chairs, are you feeling good about 5 minutes per update? And I see Barry's hand up.
That was a mistake. Sorry, I'm just cleaning my space.
Well, nice to see you, Barry. Okay. So any co-chairs have an issue with 5 minutes per report? Perry, go ahead.
Peter, we completed the crisis stabilization facility meeting this last week, and I'm more than happy to provide a brief report if we have time.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we will have time. And Holly, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you. And if you'd like to take that the J-pop piece first, we can certainly do that.
Great. Okay. All right. So we have a lot of good stuff to work on. And, you know, this is a big plan. this implementation plan, there's a lot there. And so we're going to not stress out today. We're going to just go through it piece at a time and be working on those 3 questions. But first, where am I here? I got to find where we are. Okay, so here are the questions. We're on item number 3. Can you all see where I'm at on my screen? Give me a nod. Okay, so this is
Yes,
what we'll
please. Yep.
be discussing today. These 3 questions. And then also this last part, which has to do with making sure that we have the committee assignments for the JPOP as now one of our standing committees. So just in the spirit of practicality, we're thinking maybe we would start with that and just see if we can nail that down. And Jill, I may have I may ask for your help here. Was I able to transfer to a screen that has a chart with yellow? Do I need to stop share? I think I need to stop share. Let me try this again. Okay, here we go. All right, so what we need to do today is to make sure that we've got the seats, the people on the IPRTF for their organizations are seated on the JPOP and we know who they are. So Jill, could you help me here and just clarifying what people we need in what section? Are we on the bottom section here?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Okay. So everybody, and to the degree you can turn on your screens, that would be awesome. I know there's a lot of time on screens, but that is really helpful for me when I'm facilitating. So if that's possible, that would be awesome. Okay. Here we go. We're going to go through and see if we can determine who are going to be the representatives for these JPOP positions. As a reminder, the way this is set up for the JPOP, the county council still has to approve the full slate. And we do have a couple of vacant spots we're going to be seeking. So if you have any recommendations for these, please email anybody. You can email me, you can email Jill or your co-chairs, but we need to fill these seats as well and try and get that all put forward to the county council. But we're here now at this section to see who we've got for these positions. So just speak up. You don't have to raise hand, but yeah, you did. Scott, great.
All right.
Way to participate. Thank you.
All right, elected,
Thanks for filling.
the last one, elected rep from the remaining cities within Whatcom County. We'll probably appoint that tomorrow, but I'm thinking Mary Lou Stewart, Mayor Blaine, because she's on this group as well. And maybe she's on today. Maybe she could agree to it today. But I'll get the small cities to approve that tomorrow.
Awesome. And Mary Lou, are you here? Okay, so we'll wait for hearing back from you, Scott, after that meeting.
Holly?
Yes, please. Barry?
County council member, I was appointed by the county council.
Great, so we got that one. So Barry will be for county council, and we've got this one filled, elected reps. Okay, who else can chime in?
I'll be the representative for the sheriff's office.
Okay, Tank will be the representative for the sheriff's office right there. Beautiful. Who else?
Holly,
Mm-hmm.
for the Racial Equity Commission, the commission just extended the offer to the new executive director, and we'll be working with them. Miriam is their name. The commission will have to choose its own member, so it'll probably be another month before that can be completed.
Okay, so
But
we'll
in
just
the meantime, I expect Miriam would fill in the gap or fill in the blank until a formal appointment.
terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's
Holly, I will be for the county executive's office. Yeah.
Thank you, Sapfal. Appreciate that. Okay, public defender. Who do we have for that? Would anybody like to make an educated guess about who we should ask?
Holly
Yeah.
Jill here. I don't see Maya online, but I am happy to email her and start after the meeting so we can get their commitment.
Perfect. Raylene?
I was gonna say that we should probably reach out to Stark or Maya. I can also reach out to a member of the conflict office.
Okay. Do you want to have staff, do you want to have Jill start, or Raylene, do you want to take that on? Do you guys care? Jill, should we have Raylene take that on? Are you okay with it?
If she's welcome to, sure, if she wants to. Not familiar with the folks that she wants to reach out to, so that would probably be best.
Okay. And am I correct that we want somebody who does serve on the IPRTF? Or it doesn't matter, right? Just as long as they're representing the agency.
The statute does not require that the public defender or representative be a member of the IPRTF.
Okay. So Raylene, you're on for that?
Yes.
Beautiful. Terrific. Thank you. Okay. Bellingham Mayor. Could somebody reach, the Bellingham Mayor is not here today, so who would be willing to reach out to them?
I'll talk to Maryland.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And then Bellingham City Council member.
So I'm just going through the document right now, and we had nominated Michael Lilliquist for the financial aspect of this, but this is much broader. So I'm willing to just put my name in, I guess, and we'll kind of figure it out.
Terrific. Yay. Thanks, Dan. It's excellent. Yeah. Okay. All right. Nooksack Tribe. Any ideas about who might be willing to serve on behalf of the Nooksack Tribe? Yeah, go ahead, Sapal.
Yeah, I have a comment about this, and this has been a issue with the county and a lot of other things. Whenever we as a county or city, or especially countywide commissions and things, we always try to say one seat for Lummi tribe or tribal people, or we say one for Nooksack, one for Lummi. In conversing with their councils and things, what I heard that they're not keen to send their council members to these numerous committees and things we expect them to. And it was a good conversation. I think what we should try to do is ask the both tribes to send their citizens to these. And they were also have not this tradition of appointing citizens from the tribe who can speak for the tribe. That is a conundrum they feel. And sending, they have a limited depth in their councils for this kind of work, where they are very much interested to do that. So we have to find some ways. This is not only on this IPRTF, there are a lot of other committees and things we do. And I think that as a group, we should open this conversation with them and do that so that we can have their representation, which is very valuable. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rosa?
Hi, you guys. So I can kind of speak on this. So I'm Nooksack and Lummi, but I'm not registered with either one of them. I'm registered in Sklallam, so over there by Squim, because we know federally you cannot be recognized by more than one tribe. But I work out in Lummi. I've been out there for a decade. So I work at the college. I know a lot of people, but I'm not on the council. You know, I'm a scientist, so I'm trying to create Indigenous scientists, but this is an issue. This has been an ongoing issue because we know on the reservations that, or in Indian communities, we have a lot of issues. And I am frustrated as a citizen that we're not at the seat, we're not at the table. So but I do know a lot of people. What I'm saying is I do know a lot of people at LIBC, just because my institution partners with their natural resources, and honestly, I'm related to people out there. I don't know if I can sit on a seat, or I don't know what it really entails, or if I'm even qualified, but I can be a bridge in some sort of way. So let's keep that in mind to both Nooksack and Lemmy. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rosa. Is it true that we do need the, kind of like how Barry was formally agreed to by the council, that we would need I assume we would need the council's approval both for Lemmy and Nooksack to say this is our rep. Is that true? Okay. All right. And besides the fact that Rosa is willing to serve, which is awesome, I think it seems like unless somebody else here can speak for either the Lemmy tribe or sorry, flip that, Lemmy Nation or Nooksack tribe. Any other information that people have on that? Okay.
Holly?
Yep.
Just to kind of echo what Sat Paul was saying, I know when I began on the IPRTF, I reached out to a member of the Lummi Law and Order, and that individual did come to some of the meetings, but she was very frustrated as she felt like she was allowed to attend and learn about the resources and bring that information back, but didn't feel like she could speak on behalf of the tribe, which seems to echo what St. Paul was saying. And before, when I did ask about it, it seemed to be an ongoing struggle. So if Rosa can be a bridge, I'm all on board with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't sit on any committees there except for Northwest Indian College and that type of stuff, but that's separate from the business council and Nooksack. So yeah, I mean, like, I could be a bridge, I can make the introductions. I've been there long enough to where people could hear me, but that doesn't mean anything as well. So just, I'll try my best and reach out to me.
Peter?
Rosa, yes, Rosa, thank you very much for doing that. And in the absence of other channels for us to resolve this, I would love it if you would be able to help us to fill those 2 seats. And yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so with that, why don't we work offline and try and just figure out the sort of the political mechanics of this? And Rosa, thank you so much. And we'll figure out how we need to do this properly, but otherwise we have Rosa willing to be a bridge. And it's really obviously really important. And there's also limitations that Raylene and Sat Paul have spoken to that we need to bear in mind. Okay. So
Holly?
yeah, Marty. Go ahead.
Why don't you scroll back up to the top to those 3 yellow positions, and let's just see if anybody has any contacts off the top of their mind for filling these seats, or knows somebody who really would like to do that, who they've talked to already. The behavioral health provider, supportive housing subject matter expert, and a youth rep who just needs to be somebody 18 to 24, but ideally with an interest in incarceration prevention and reduction, the kind of work that JPOP will be doing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Looks like Perry and Raylene might have something.
Go ahead, Perry.
Yes, if I can back out just a little bit in the framework of this, I've actually brought this point up to the steering committee, but this is the time that we're addressing this. I think a couple of things. I believe that it's really important for the Whatcom Health and Community Services to be represented on JPOP by virtue of obviously the knowledge relative to behavioral health services, administration of contracts, etc. So I don't know where that would fit in terms of the permanent positions or the appointed by council positions. But certainly what leaps to mind is Melora Christensen, the Response Systems Division Manager, just related to the, response systems and, all of the work that's going on there in relation to incarceration and individuals that are in need, as well as Ann Beck in terms of her expertise and the expertise of her staff relative to supportive housing. So I think that there's a big gap there. I just wanted to offer that up formally and offer, those names. But again, I don't know whether it fits in that top arena or we need to modify the lower arena in terms of permanent positions.
Thank you, Perry. Does anyone have an opinion they'd like to share in that question about the representation? Just if you have if you do have a direct response to Perry, this is a good signal that I know. Do you see what I'm doing with my hands? If you pop on screen and do that, then you jump in the queue, and then I know what what the comment.
I'm a behavioral health provider.
Okay.
For a long time. So I would be willing to do it.
Great. And do you represent the group that Perry, say it again, the name of the group you were just mentioning?
Do I represent it? What do you think, Perry?
Well, I was speaking specifically to the health department, Whatcom Health and Community Services, and just, again, that I think that it fits more in that lower section. Obviously, Arlene has great expertise and history as far as behavioral health. My concern is more the relationship that the health department has, relative to the contracts, providing services in the jail, et cetera, and not being represented in either of the groups. I think that it fits more in the bottom section. But so I'm not speaking directly to, Arlene's willingness to be that behavioral health provider. Hope that helps, Holly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the idea with that behavioral health provider and supportive housing subject matter expert is to have somebody outside of county government in those seats.
Yeah.
So Arlene, you are outside county government, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
So you're offering to serve in that behavioral health.
I work in a private organization.
Great, thank you. Okay, so noted. Dan, you had a comment there a second ago. I think it was a direct response.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out what the rationale is behind having someone outside the county system to be that behavioral health provider slot. What's the rationale for that?
That there's already a fair bit of government representation and involvement in the implementation planning work. That there's already a lot of input, and this JPOP is to get more diverse input than we already are having. And any county government person, any of the health department people, housing specialists, anybody can attend and be involved in the JPOP, just not necessarily as a voting member, but can attend any meetings and be very involved in it. It was just to try to get more diverse representation and hear from people throughout the community instead of only government.
Gotcha. Can I follow up real quick? I'll be brief. So Melora or Ann Beck would be the most qualified to provide perspective from the response division of the Whatcom County Health Department. But that being said, if the perspective is that we want a more diverse kind of view of this, then perhaps someone from a provider like Lake Whatcom Treatment would be suitable. So I would recommend that we speak to Britta Johnson at Lake Whatcom. Lake Whatcom has had representation on the Behavioral Health Committee for the task force for some time, or another frontline provider. I just feel it's very important for us to make sure that we're working with current providers who are seeing what we're seeing on the out there in the community. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dan. And to just clarify, what we're doing now is just seeing if people have ideas. And then Marty and I, part of our job is to do the outreach and just see if we can get people who you've named and their interest to do the application. So this is really helpful, I think, to clarify what we're looking for. So let's hear, I'm going to call on the stack. So Raylene, then Bertie, then Peter. Go ahead, Raylene.
Thank you. A couple thoughts. One, as you're talking about an opening for youth and teen court representatives, Commissioner Jonathan Richardson, as well as Judge Evan Jones, have been involved in the teen court for quite some time, reaching out to them to see if they have an idea of somebody that might be able to participate on that. I think would be beneficial if you haven't done so already. So that's my thought on that. On the behavioral health side, I know Arlene works for Touchstone or is assisted in training, but Jesse and Erica Crate are the owners of Touchstone Behavioral Health for youth and teens. Very much involved in opening a center in Everson as well as a location in Blaine. And after a presentation at the last Law and Justice, Legal and Justice Subcommittee, where Heather Flaherty pointed out a need in mental health and juveniles being one of the strongest problems that we have. Having a representative for mental health in teens, I think, is very important. So they may also be individuals we'd want to reach out to. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. Bertie?
Yes, I think this conversation that we're having right now reflects a bit of uncertainty or possibly lack of clarity about the actual role of J-pop. And I'm not sure that this is the appropriate time to have that conversation, but I would hope that sometime in the near future, we do, because there's tremendous overlap in terms of the people serving on the IPRTF and the J-pop, and there's tremendous overlap in the scope of work that each is being asked to do. And so I think the question is the J-pop committee aimed at being different representatives, sort of folks on the ground, or is it more of the type of representation that IPRTF has on it? And while I don't have the answer, I think it's a really important question and conversation to eliminate some of the confusion between this overlap. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertie. Yeah, clarifying, getting clear on that overlap is something that we're going to be doing soon, because we have to make sure we've got some clarity of roles for this whole this whole machine that we're co-creating together. So let's just take one more suggestion from you, Satpal, and then we'll move on. Go ahead. Oh, okay, Satpal, you're frozen. I don't know if I'm frozen, but I can see other people.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I want to bring this to everybody's attention that how we from the executive office are viewing the future role of IPRTF and everything. There are two areas which we believe that we need IPRTF to focus on. One is the policy recommendations for a criminal justice system, that the whole justice system, the defender, public prosecutor, judiciary, as well as sheriff's department. I think that is an area we believe that IPRTF need to concentrate on. And the other part is the data collection. Remember, it is such an important thing. And like, we are ready to hire people, all this through public health department. We don't know, like, there is no coherence document. This is the data we need, and this is the points of collection, which is across all the departments. so that there's no duplication. That's what we have. We have data, a lot of data, which is silos. Sheriff's data has a different department, PA has a different data, and so is the others, right? I think that needs more. Now, IPRTF concentrating on implementation plan. I think the success of IPRTF in getting to where we are is unfathomable. It's great. But I think that this committee should take off their sights a little bit off of that. I'm not saying don't do this, but off of that and concentrate other things which we can do that. Now, County Executive's Office is implementation branch. We are the lead in that. It doesn't mean that we don't need oversight and everything, but that should be questioned to us, that we come to this committee and present to you what we are doing, how we are doing. Same thing with behavioral health. We have PHAB, we have Housing Committee, we have Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, and there are other groups, you know, yes. So there is a lot of element of duplication happening here. This is a subject everybody is familiar with, and they want to come back to the same subject. I think the focus of IPRTF should change, especially on the criminal justice system reform, data collection, and data use. Maybe 2 years from now, that need to be changed as well. So that would be suggestion from our perspective for consideration. This committee meeting or next committee meeting, I think this needs more formal view so that we can define, bring clarity to IPRTF's focus. Thank you.
Great. So Paul, that was a great tee up to moving into the next part of our discussion, because it really is about, we've got a very complex system. There's a lot of points that overlap. Data is obviously one. And so we're all going to be working together to figure that out and, you know, create efficiencies and clarity as we move forward. So that's exactly what we're here for. And today we're going to start kind of shaping that all up as we look at the plan and I'm going to stop share for a minute and I'm going to go to our packet and our questions. And here we go. Okay, can you see the agenda again? Yes. Okay, so these are the two questions that we're going to start with. And that has to do with, and again, we're not going to finish today, but we're going to get started on going through the plan and just see what we understand now about who on the IPRTF is involved in each project at a staff level and otherwise, and who is the lead for each project in the county. And then question two, we're going to bundle it with question two. What projects align with each committee, meaning the IPRTF committee, and what committees expect to have on their agendas in the next 18 months? So these are big questions, and we want to round it out today. And so be thinking as we go through this about your opinion on, if we could only pick 3 projects this year to prioritize, which ones would they be? All right, so that's going to be our last round. So, you know, time willing, we're going to get all the way through this. So we're going to want to be as laser focused as we can as we go through this and stay on track, and really everybody be thinking about your sense of what the priorities are. Yeah, Peter. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, since I can't see everybody because I'm on my phone, do we have representation from each and all committees of the IPRTF here today? Jill, could you zip through and look? Because I want to make sure nobody's being left out here as far as representation of committees.
Are you asking about the committee chairs? They are all present.
Great.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Okay. Okay, so everybody, are you ready? You got the two questions in mind? So who's involved in each of these projects? And who's the lead? So we're looking for names, And Peter, you can take down your hand. I'm going to scroll us down here. Okay, here we are with the needs assessment. And this wonderful, if you ever get lost or need a quick refresher, we've got this great little diagram that gives you the holistic view of what we're trying to achieve. We have the 5 implementation strategies here. Can all see those? Right? And we're going to go down here to the projects. So strategy 1 is to ensure oversight, accountability, and transparency. And we're on project 1. So there is, what is it, Marty, remind me, 15, 16 projects altogether?
15.
15. Okay, so we're going to go through 15. We're going to be as efficient as we can. And so again, we're asking for any leads on staff that we know about and any committees that are picking up pieces of this work. So this one's easy. We start with an easy one. Okay, so project 1, establish a Justice Project Oversight and Planning Committee, including a balanced representation. So I think we've all done that and we can say check. Yes? Check. Yay, we're already winning. Okay. And you can see we just are going to get this together, make sure it's clear on what we're doing. Start recruitment. Okay. Now we're on project 2. Look at how fast we're going. Establish a Justice Project Finance Advisory Board. So who can speak to where we're at with that and what we need to do? And who's on first base?
It's done already.
Excellent. In motion. Wonderful. And we have Paul here. Great. Project 3, collect data to measure progress towards desired outcome and develop a data dashboard. So there's probably more than one here. Yeah, jump in, Heather.
Holly, I'm wondering if, I know some of these may have been completed, but I'm also hoping to understand if we have questions as a task force about updates or where to go if there are, let's say there's a policy recommendation to adjust the Finance Advisory Board. Who on the IPRTF do we need to ask for information, or what's that connection point and linkage to the lead on that process? So some may be obvious, and like I believe executives to do, right? Lead organization, county exec's office, but in the future, where are we going to get updates and linkages from that Finance Advisory Board? And is executives to do, are you willing to provide periodic updates, or somebody from your office? And at that name and staff level, including even the JPOP, who do we go to if we want to update the JPOP scope, or if things aren't going well and in 6 months or 25 months, we realize we need to adjust a policy recommendation around JPOP. So could we go back and actually put some names in, even if they've been completed?
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks, Heather, for that good clarification. And Kayla, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this totally answers Heather's question, but just sort of general context as we think about this is that the exec's office is planning on quarterly updates to the IPRTF about sort of progress around these projects. And so that could be a channel for receiving the updates from us about sort of what's happened at the last FAD meeting. In addition, those are all open public meetings with the IPRTF co-chairs serving. So I imagine they will also be a conduit of information.
Heather, why don't you lean in here and what other clarifications do we need to make right now?
So Kayla, can we go even back up to the Justice to JPOP?
We can.
So based on what I know, I would put Barry, Kayla, and Sat Paul in that question 1 of who on the IPRTF is involved with JPOP at a staff level. And then for what committee, any updates or specific conversations, would we put steering, perhaps?
I think, so Sat Paul, it sounds like will be the designee from the exec branch on JPOP, but I think JPOP sort of is as a subcommittee of the IPRTF would rely on the IPRTF itself to sort of be the lead on JPOP, if that makes sense from an update perspective. And I think the facilitators would have a role there with JPOP, if that sound right to everyone?
Yeah, that's how I understand that JPOP is a subcommittee of IPRTF. They are not under council or they are not under county executive directly. We are members of that, non-voting members for that matter. But the functioning of JPOP is entirely under IPRTF management team.
So then, but it was many of those positions were council appointed, right? And council established or approved the ordinance that established JPOP. So if there's a policy recommendation ever again from the IPRTF regarding JPOP, it would go to council.
Yes.
Okay. And then do we need to put in, I mean, sometimes when you say IPRTF is responsible for something as a body, then I guess as co-chair, I'm trying to answer the next step of how do we execute that responsibility well? Because if you just give it to the whole body, then it's not really assigned to anyone and decisions get really clunky. And so how do we help? Like, who is actually responsible for supporting JPOP? Is it Holly and Marty? Let's put those names in. Is it Jill Nixon? Let's put that name in. Like, who is going to take care of JPOP? And maybe this is the wrong conversation to have. I just want to help support accountability and not have this plan languish anywhere. And I know that with Kayla and Executive Sadhu's leadership, there will be progress and updates. But if the IPRTF is listed as a lead organization, then how are we executing our part of that work?
Heather, I think it is the right conversation to have at this time. I support that. What we need is a full list of individual names and committees here for accountability reasons.
Okay.
My question would be, are you asking for the staff people names there or members of IPRTF committee assignments as the part of the committee that somebody is responsible for making sure that information is available, not a particular staff or particular employee of the county? Then that staff, that member of IPRTF would reach out to council or executive that this is what their needs are. But to me, the members of IPRTF should be assigned those responsibilities, or like we were going to talk about some of the committees. And then each committee has committee members, right? I don't know. I mean, am I on the right track of thinking or not?
I think it's a little bit of both, Executive Sadhu. I think it's where would this fit on IPRTF business if it needs to come up? How are we understanding whatever updates we need to understand? And it might make more sense when we get to some more of the actionable, like less committee and process work, but more of the actual projects of the implementation plan. But who in the county is moving it forward, and then who on the task force is already involved at that program level and can provide updates to the task force.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to suggest here, Marty, could you start us a fresh doc that we can use on the screen? And as we go through, let's go back to our first questions. I'm realizing that my lack of ability to actually type things into this doc is not serving our need to really get as specific as we would like. And the questions that Heather is raising are really spot on in terms of we want to get clear and kind of map this out. And so offering ideas here is really helpful to be as clear as we can, especially to this last point of staff members, whoever's on leadership right now. So who is involved at the staff level and otherwise, and what projects align with each committee. Okay, so going back to those two, Marty, are you with me? Can you back up on that one? Okay, so for these first questions.
Did you want me to share screen? I just was making a little table here.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm kind of in process, but.
Okay, we'll take a minute then for that. I'm going to scroll back down, so we're still in the same place here. All right, so with what we understand right now with the J-pop and who are the key folks, Heather, what was your last question? Say it again, what your hope is for this. So for policy recommendations, just lay it on the table, the last thing you said and what you would recommend.
I don't remember what I said. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But I would, if I was filling in this table based on what I know, I would say that who's involved with J-pop, there's quite a bit of overlap, I expect, with the IPRTF. And if and probably every committee will have some touch point with J-pop, but I would probably put it in steering as the home committee for if policy recommendations need to be addressed, that they come to steering to then go back up to council.
How does that sound to people? Makes sense. Okay, and we don't have to like vote or come to agreement at this meeting, but I am going to ask if you have like senses of things like, heck no, that's not how it should go. You do speak up. Okay, Marty, got that one? Okay, we're going to keep this screen on now and let's clarify for the Justice Project Finance Advisory Board. Who are the key people who need to be helping carry water from point A to point B on this? Kayla, please.
The county executive's office worked with council, and we have established and seated the Justice Project Finance Advisory Board and working on scheduling a first meeting for September.
Great. In terms of who is the specific like staff person, Kayla, is that
going to put me as the lead for now?
I'm sorry?
You can put me as the lead for now, and then I'll let folks know if there's a different designee.
Perfect. Okay.
And then who on the task force is also on that body? I know that Peter and I are anybody else on that body?
I don't think anybody from IPRTF is, except the two chairs. I may be wrong, but that's what I believe. They're just the two co-chairs.
Okay.
And then there are people from small cities, Bellingham, Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, Executive's Office, like that. I think it's right. A list is right there. That draft charter, it was pretty much the same. Yeah. And there are two individual lived experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we good on this one? All right. We are now on project 3. So collect data to measure progress towards desired outcomes. So let's, who's specifically on point in terms of staffing, and then any IPRTF committees.
I want to bring what I just said a few minutes ago, is this is where we need direction from IPRTF as the expertise and work they have done. Lead organization name is there, that we will make sure we will hire the people, will provide the periodic reports if it is every month, every 2 months, or a quarter, and we will set up the data that if it is coming from sheriff's office, coming from prosecutor's office, coming from defender, coming from all the gamut of different spots or places which we have felt over the years that our data is not coherent or in a format that you can interpret it, right? So that the basis of data collection is same. I think this is where we believe that IPRTF has the knowledge and time to develop that profile and hand it over to us and or to Erica Lauterbach, say, okay, this is what we need. How soon you can start getting it to us? And then will be lead organization. That will be step number 2. Then we will have the responsibility that anybody can call us up. Hey, what about this data report we didn't get? So I think leaving it again to the executive's office or health department to devise their own means of data dashboard or data collection will defeat the same whole purpose. We want this thing should be organically grown from the frustrations we have had over the last several years and define and refine, this is what we need. Then it'll be our responsibility to how to get it and how to get it to you. That's how we perceive it.
Okay, great, thank you. So I see a couple of people with their hands up, so we'll take Bertie, Peter, and Arlene. Go ahead, Bertie.
Okay, so I'm chair of the index committee, just so that you're aware. And I just have in front of me the mission statement of the index committee, which is a subcommittee of the IPRTF. And it is to develop a data collection and reporting system that accurately informs policymakers when considering changes, et cetera, in the criminal justice system. So there's some potential clarity there that this subcommittee would be the focus. In reality, of course, we're an advisory committee and we're not going to actually do the work. JPOP has this as an important part of their oversight as well. And in fact, action right now is that the health department has put out an excellent proposal for the development of a performance measurement plan that is currently have a couple of responders, and they plan by the end of tomorrow to have one of those 2 potential consultants chosen. So I think that there's a lot of good team members working on this, but from my position, there's not too much clarity on who is involved with what and where this flows. I think it's not the role of the index committee to actually do what the proposal for the performance measurement plan is, and I'm very pleased, but I don't think there's a lot of clarity about when that proposal is done, who has input on it, does it, do the recommendations come to the index committee and then work their way up to the JPOP and the IPRTF? Do they live independently in the health department? I think this is one of the big areas of confusion. So this is an excellent opportunity to clarify.
Great, thank you. So Bertie, let's hear from the other folks and then let's start thinking about the specific names. Right? So even if we don't know today, who are the people who we'd have to get into a room to really nail it down? So hold that thought. Yeah, Peter?
I just wanted to back up everything that Bertie is saying, particularly around lack of clarity. It has been on the index committee for the last 5.5 years to sort this all out. I think without any FTE, really significant FTE assigned to this, index has really gotten not very far. And so I would say that I have a question whether to, as far as legal organizations, whether it's the county executive's office or it's the health department. I believe that this is all going to live in the health department. That is my understanding. And so I I would put Erica Lautenbach and Kayla in there. That's how I'm thinking of it. And then the committee really should be Index and J-pop. So
Great.
that's where I am, and let's run towards clarity, because we cannot really, the IPRTF cannot move forward with this until we have this solicitation responded to, accepted, a contract in place to lead the process. So I think we're going there, but.
Yeah, thanks. That was helpful. Okay, Arlene, you're up.
Yes, I don't know whether you want any questions to be answered today, but the one that is suggested to me in behavioral health is wait time. How long do you have to wait for this service or this judgment to be done? And I think it would be true in all of the areas affected.
So
And-
let's hold that so we at some point, and we also are going to need to define what data is going to be most important, right? So we're clarifying who's going to do the work, and then we have to figure out what data, we have some ideas already, but what data points are going to be most relevant. So thank you for that. Yes, perfect. Okay, Kayla, you're up.
Thanks. I just wanted to say, sort of to the question, I also have, some struggles around clarity between exec branch, IPRTF, J-pop index here, but I think sort of with the health department taking the lead on this solicitation, that definitely kind of puts us in a role of facilitating input from a policy perspective. But to Sat Paul's point a few minutes ago, I think the idea here is that it's really the IPRTF who's saying this is what we want to learn. This is the data we need. And it's important that comes from community, that comes from folks outside of the criminal justice system to say, like, this is how we want to evaluate and this is how we want to measure our progress. And so I want to be cautious about fully putting this in the lap of the county administration and think that the county administration can pull, can display, can facilitate the collection of data, but the recommendation on what we want to measure and what the recommendations that come out of that data work, like, I think it's important that lives with community and therefore the IPRTF. So just wanted to say that. Also just want to be cautious, of course, about how much the county administration is taking on, and developing the policy rationale for what we want to measure feels like something that not only is better done by community, but can be done by community and through the facilitation that Holly and Marty provide. And I think it's important that we make sure that we prioritize the administration's time for stuff that only the administration can do. Only the administration can construct these facilities, can build a jail, can manage contracts. And so how are we making sure all of the stakeholders involved are sort of put to the highest and best use?
Yeah, when you're speaking, I'm getting a sense of, it's almost like we need to create a flow chart that shows like where the inputs are and, and kind of processes it through. So from Kayla to who is on point from the executive's office?
So I would be the point of contact in the executive's office, and then Erica's team is supporting us with this effort. And so I think the health department's role will be evolving, and you can put sort of Erica and Lynette Bennett as co-leads along with myself. And I think that flow chart idea is great. It's like, I think that we're not best suited to create the inputs, but can create the outputs.
Yeah, that was a really great distinction. Thank you for that. Okay, and I appreciate the names. Okay, so it's so that we can keep moving. Keep your next comments as succinct as possible. Okay, so Paul.
Okay, very briefly, I agree with Kayla. I just want to say, if IPRTF can come up with the dashboard, like we say dashboard, what do you want to measure? How many people are in the jail who are not gone on trial? How many, what is the waiting time is? Like, come up with 10 different things you want to see, which are coherent from the prosecutor's office, they are same from the sheriff's office, they are same from the correction, they are same from the defender. that definition we need. Now, how we will create the data to back up the dashboard you have devised, we will do that work.
Excellent.
We don't know what dashboard boards IPRTF or the community wants to see. If we come up with on our own, and then they will say, this is not adequate. This is not what we wanted.
That's great.
We want,
Okay.
give us those things, and
Yep.
we will tell you which, if it is not possible, we'll come back to you. But this is the starting point, and we have to define to our consultant, this is what we want.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's helpful too with the sequencing. Thank you, Satpal. Bertie?
Yes, I think that I totally agree with what Kayla and Satpal have said, and that in fact is exactly the proposal for the consultant, is to work with, quote, the community to develop what the measures are for these 15 projects of the implementation plan. So that to me, the key decision point very soon is how do we define, quote, the community, and who do they work with within the IPRTF? Because one of the two consultant proposals talks a lot about working with JPOP starting right away, and no awareness of the index committee, which has been meeting for some time about this. And I, in no way, am trying to sound self-serving or looking for work. As you know, if we just decide we don't need the index committee, that's perfectly okay. But the point is, we need some clarity soon, because this is coming to fruition relatively quickly. And so I think this is an important conversation for today. How do the index committee and the JPOP, which hasn't even met yet, work collaboratively and not redundantly? I think that's the most important.
I think you've named it precisely. Good. Okay. So, and Bertie, as the chair of the index, can you be on point there?
I'd be happy to.
Conversation. Okay, super. Eileen?
Trying to find my arrow. Thank you. Real quick, I really like what Bertie's having to say. As we look at all the essential collaborators, the collaborator of the IPRTF and the Legal Justice Committee, each committee has value, and we're supposed to, like, the Legal and Justice Subcommittee would want to take data from the Index Committee to make an action plan. So I think each committee needs to come back to the Index Committee and say, these are things that we want to think we can take action on. This is the data we need to have to take action to move forward. We are an essential collaborator for the JPOP committee as a subcommittee of the IPRTF. So I think as subcommittees, we need to regroup, ask our members of our subcommittees, what data do we need from the index committee to take action? And I think that will help what Bertie's asking.
Great. And you're referring here to taking action relative to data collection, Raylene?
Yes, I think each
Like
subcommittee wants, yeah, if we want to take action and move forward on less people incarcerated, how to move cases forward, how to have less continuances, what data do the judges need to make these things happen? What areas are we struggling with? And I think if we come back to the index committee with the needs, behavioral health, what setbacks are they having? They come back to the index committee. Index committee provides that data to the subcommittees, who then bring it to the full task force to help make decisions for JPOP as well.
Right, or routing it from the committees, all the committees, to the index, to the JPOP, right, and getting their input would be another flow. Okay, so I think what we'll do is between now and our next meeting, we can start mapping this out, make sure we're talking to the right people, see where those contractors are that are coming online, right? And see if we can start mapping how this is going to flow. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, Marty and I will be on point for helping, you know, shepherd. We will be the shepherds of that. Okay, we good on this one? Heather, anything else you need on this? All right, beautiful. You know, I think this is good that we're starting at the top. All of these first projects have to do with coordination. So I'm just feeling like this is probably good. We're talking about these today because that's going to get us on the right. Okay, strategy 2, increase access to behavioral health services. Actually, I want to check because we're on item 4 and it's 10:12. For Peter and Heather, our chairs, do you want me to just keep moving through the plan? Or because we're not going to get through the whole thing. I'm looking at the clock and just knowing we're not going to get through everything.
I think we should continue moving through the plan.
I
And
agree.
and we can, you know, if it takes 2 meetings to do this part, then so be it. We're making good progress there.
Good. Heather, yeah? Okay.
I agree. Thank you.
You guys are doing great. The conversations seem really on point. So again, what committees and what people are going to help take leadership on this? So we're on project 4, address workforce shortages in behavioral health services. The original concept here was that the Whatcom County Health and Community Services, which I realized when you said that later, I'm just used to saying health department, but right, that's the correct title. I'm there. So who do we got here for our leads? And what committees? Jump on in.
What did you say?
Who are the lead people on this item to take it forward? And what IPRTF committees are going to be involved?
Okay,
Oh, Peter's hand's up. I'll let him go first.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, Kayla's the expert here, but I would Perry comes to mind immediately for the health department, and then our behavioral health committee of the IPRTF. But what do you want to say, Kayla?
I was going to put Erica Lonbach and Muller Christensen, and then they can work with staff in the response system division to figure out how they want to do this. And then I think as it relates to the committees, you know, I think there's sort of a separate related discussion we've been having sort of as the planning team around sort of how the committee structure works going forward, given the other committees that are in play related to behavioral health. So I feel like it's sort of impossible to designate a committee for this before we have that full discussion. You know, obviously the MAC group that the health department convenes is playing a lead role here, as are other sort of stakeholder groups we have working with behavioral health providers themselves. And so would want to work with Dan and IPRTF on sort of the role of the behavioral health committee itself, given all of those other conversations and committee work that's happening outside of the IPRTF.
Thank you for that. Heather?
For those key next steps, I'm wondering if the assumption is that Erica and Melora will be doing those actions, that they'll engage with the provider organizations to identify and prioritize strategies, that they'll be working with the state legislators, etc. And if not them, then who would be on point to do those things? And how would it make sense for an IPRTF committee to be responsible for that community input on those topics as well?
Great questions. Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this goes beyond the work of the task force. So this particular topic has come up with our legislative agenda that we're going to our delegation with, and with our new lobbyist when we hire that group. So these things exist in multiple different dimensions. And there's a lot of work. Obviously, the body of work is pretty comprehensive, but I just want to put that on the map that the city council and the mayor's office are working as as this is one of the highest priorities that we want to talk to our state delegation with. Thanks.
Got it. Thank you. Perry?
Yes, I would definitely agree with what Dan just said. In particular, being able to, continue to gather information from the providers. We obviously have consistent and regular meetings with the providers, just in terms of those details of what are the challenges in regard to workforce. We all know compensation, is an issue and so forth, and continue to push that forward and need that support of, the executive's office and IPRTF and et cetera for that legislative, component to carry that information to the legislators, and also, of course, returning it back to the providers in terms of that update.
Got it. And when you're saying we in that sentence, who's the we that you're referring to, Perry?
Sorry, yes, I think it is Whatcom Health and Community Services, with that connection to the providers, regularly on a number of different levels, whether that's through contract facilitation, or we have regular meetings with the providers in the community and speak to the challenges that they're experiencing as far as providing the service, whether that's staffing or location or, et cetera. I think that we could bring we being the health department, if you will, bring that important information to the table.
And bring that kind of collection of parties. It can be in a leadership role there. Thank you. Great. Raylene?
Yes, thank you. As we're going through these and you're asking for names of people that might be able to help, I think of our behavioral health therapeutic courts that we currently have. And I know that I think it's Robin Willems that has been instrumental in assisting with the therapeutic courts as a collaborating between all the different parties. I know Denise Richter with Whatcom County Probation has been involved in behavioral health courts, as well as Judge Angela Anderson and Tammy Bennett with Bellingham Municipal Court, as they also have a mental health court. So those are just a few things that I think, as we're collaborating, the courts are working on funding as well to assist in these areas and actually have hands-on information on the struggles that they see. So it would be good to reach out to those individuals. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for creating those points. Yeah, Heather?
So it sounds like we're comfortable with a decentralized responsibility for those key next steps, because I understand what you're saying, Council Member Hamill, about like this work exists outside the context of the IPRTF. So in a year, how do we know who did what to move these key next steps forward when the work is decentralized and beyond the IPRTF? Like, how do we monitor this? How do we know who's working with local governments to remedy inadequate pay scales for behavioral health care providers in contracts and funding awards? Who's gonna, is anybody responsible for saying, hey, Mayor Cortice, let's look at Lyndon's contracts and see if pay is adequate?
Yeah, good. Daniel, what do you think?
Heather, were you asking me directly?
Yeah.
No, I mean, no, I would love to hear what you think, but I was acknowledging that I agree with you that these 6 bullet points here, it's not like the work is bigger than what the IPRTF is doing. And there's lots of people trying to advance these priorities, but eventually somebody's going to need to say, okay, what did we end up succeeding at as a community? And how do we know at this, as the IPRTF, who's doing what on these action steps?
Okay, I'll try to answer that question. So this speaks to one of the issues that drives me crazy, and I think Peter, to some extent, we call it siloing. We exist in our own little bubbles, and we need to have better communication when it comes to who's doing what and how we're coordinating together. So one of the issues and we need to have this on the table, is that the county, the port, and the city have all decided to go their separate ways when it comes to lobbying in Olympia. And so we used to have a shared legislative agenda, and we don't have that any longer. And so we are now we have further siloed ourselves into our own little bubbles. And so to your point, Heather, to your question, we do need to make sure that we're coordinating at the governmental body level and at the task force level as well. And that's why it's important for us to have representation here so we can share, what these particular ideas are and what we're asking our state representatives to do. In this case, it's a very complex, we're asking to change the way that behavioral health services are provided in a better way, and compensation, Medicaid reimbursement, the whole array of things. So we do need to make sure that we're at the table, that we're participating, and that we're clear on what our visions are for our various governmental bodies. And that's what I intend to do, and keep it very clear and bring back to this task force.
Peter?
Thank you, Dan, for that. What role do you see for your committee, Behavioral Health Committee, in this project?
So we meet tomorrow morning, and this is one of the agenda items that was floated up to the top in terms of action items that we would want to consider advocating for and providing resources for. And when we get to the committee discussions later here in the meeting, I can go over what that looks like a little bit, but we're definitely we're recalibrating, I'll just say that, to be more action oriented, and to kind of bring back the type of committee that we were when we started.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So we've got several moving pieces on this. It sounds like Perry is also going to help with just making sure we're clear with the health department. We just use that for short. And then we'll figure out how these all weave together as we go forward. And Dan, thanks for taking that on. I really appreciate it. Any further comments on this one? Okay, that's excellent. Let's move on. So Project 5, build systems to facilitate communication and coordination between organizations. All righty, we got a lot here. Let's jump in. What kind of leadership do we have? Who's on first base with some of these, and what IPRTF committees are involved?
Well, clearly, Holly, the lead organization being the Whatcom County Health and Community Services. I hesitate to speak for, the health department, obviously Erica, and so forth, but this is absolutely something that we are currently doing and certainly plan on continuing to do. So I know I can say that much, with confidence, just in regard to, that component of the, participating in forums and that pieces of information, ensuring the no wrong door, or identifying those in terms of practices. So I feel confident in saying that this is something that we would be at least co-lead on, unless there are other entities, and again needing to combine that. So I'll say that much at this point.
Great, thanks, Peter.
Harry and or Barry or anyone else who was intimately involved with putting this together, Kayla perhaps, cost estimate down at the bottom, what was that referring to? And what have those positions been hired? Who I would assume at the health department? Any knowledge or remembrances on that?
I vaguely remember. So I don't think we were talking about a new FTE there. I think we were potentially talking about software purchases. When Melora and the team were in Nashville, they had seen some software that had really facilitated coordination. And so that was the original vision for that cost estimate. And then we were planning on in-kind staff time, given that this work is really held already within the health department, largely around all of the different committees they convene to facilitate coordination. At one point, Melora and Perry and Erica had put together a list of all of their work associated. This was in the last several weeks with facilitation coordination. And I believe in our Q2 report to the IPRTF, all of that information is included. So that'd be the best place to look, but we listed like 7 or 8 different ongoing convenings that the health department holds around sort of knitting together this framework of agency coordination. And then the other thing I will just say is there's a lot happening that we can share in the next few months around sort of coordination of jail health and re-entry services. And as we think about what's going to have the most impact on reducing recidivism, it's the coordination on that piece that's going to be the most impactful. And so we're going to have some more updates to share soon around that work. The last thing I would say is I know there was this re-entry simulation last week, and so we can provide some examples as well about that type of in-kind work that's ongoing towards this project, but I don't think we have specific FTE or purchases planned in this area, but I'll make sure that all gets included in our next report.
Who does the information go to?
Sorry, which information, Arlene?
That you just talked about.
The reporting.
What are you reporting? Who do you send it to?
The IPRTF. We're reporting to the IPRTF quarterly. So in our
So every member gets it. Every member gets it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Okay. Anything else on this one? Great. Terrific.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So getting back to what Dan Hamill said as far as the Lake Wacom Center, I noticed on the slide it does say community-based provider organizations. So have we identified those different organizations, or is that still in the works?
Can anybody answer that?
Yeah. So all of those community organizations are sort of ongoing participants in the health department's convenings around behavioral health system coordination. Is that what you're asking, Sheriff?
Yes. I mean, I would like to see actually if someone has a comprehensive list of those different providers, so we're not missing one. So I know that there's a lot of good work that's going on out in the community, but I just want to make sure that we have a good list.
Yeah, so I think we shared that with council staff. I don't know, Holly and Marty, if you've seen it, but we've got a list of everyone who's participating in those convenings.
Okay. So let's make sure we have that list, and we'll share that with the whole of the IPRTF. And we'll hear, this is an important one. We want to hear an update. Kayla, thank you so much for taking lead on making sure, and Perry, to get those points connected. So, and it sounds like we're already in motion on this stuff as well. So Heather and then Dan, go ahead.
So are Perry and Kayla the primary linkage between, it sounds like there's already convenings happening as convened by the health department, and Perry will provide regular updates to the task force on those convenings, as if there's relevant information that will help us with our policy making recommendations and whatnot.
I'm certainly willing to take that on, Heather. I appreciate the seeking of that clarification. We do have, as it was mentioned, it's currently a bi-monthly meeting with, there's 65 or 70 representatives typically in these meetings that are providers, large and small. And so we obviously have a distribution list, identifying the individuals that are participating at this point, and continue to send out invites if a entity or individual isn't represented. So a lot of it has been developed through word of mouth, to be honest, if we are missing individuals. But that list continues to grow, and I am perfectly happy to bring information and add things to our agenda as recommended that will be pertinent to this particular project.
Thank you. It's interesting to me that Project 5, the build systems to facilitate communication and coordination between organizations, is relevant beyond the behavioral health scope that's really in those key next steps. And I think that the IPRTF is also well positioned to support that cross-sector collaboration that was by design when the IPRTF was formed. And that's why everybody is here today, to be able to weigh in from the judicial and the public defender and the prosecutor and the community and the sheriff, et cetera. So I'm curious too, specifically on bullet 4, on the establish no wrong door practices, so individuals can be referred into community programs. I think Holly and Marty, it might make sense at some point to actually just take these key next steps and parse them out. I see what you're saying about how long these conversations can really take, but there's an opportunity, I think, for IPRTF to help with the policy rationale, like Kayla has been suggesting, even on things like that. How do we help create a more human-centered system? And how does that then get integrated into service delivery?
Yeah, Heather, it's almost like we boxed ourselves into a corner a little bit by putting Whatcom County Health and Community Services as the lead here to like, we're thinking about it with behavioral health focus when really the intention was maybe broader than that, and also more integrated with the criminal legal system policy questions. And so how do we take a step back and I don't know if it's amend or just think about this a little differently and think of the IPRTF's role in other groups as a key player here too, rather than just thinking about behavioral health system coordination. I think that's great.
Great. Okay, well, that's a really important clarification, and thinking about the role. So if there's, Dan, I'll take you next, but if there's really more of a role that the IPRTF would hold in that, then we need to think about the leadership for that as well, right? So, Dan, where'd you go? There you are.
Yeah,
Go
sorry
ahead.
about that. So I just want to remind the committee here today that the Behavioral Health and the Legal and Justice Systems committees meet a few times per year. So we recognize the value of the kind of cross-pollination of ideas, and that these things don't exist in silos, and that we need to make sure that we're talking with our sister committee here. One other item, I don't know where this goes, but I know that the opiate settlement dollars for the city of Bellingham will be going to pay for a new position that is related to behavioral health and will be out of the mayor's office. And I don't have a lot of detail on that, so I'd encourage folks who are interested to contact the mayor's office to get some higher level of detail on that. But that's something that will have to be coordinated when we talk about these things. And then to Sheriff's question in terms of, you know, I had brought up Lake Whatcom before, treatment center. I'll get to what that looks like in just a few minutes here when we get to the committee reports, but we're very active on trying to address the issues that you're bringing up. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay, anything else that needs to be said on Project 5? Yeah, Peter?
I just want to make sure that we do leave time for our committee updates and public comment. So do you think that we should get another one in here, or should we move on?
What I was thinking, thank you, Peter. What I was thinking is maybe, Marty, do you feel like you're in a place where you can pop up the list of what we've said so far? Or maybe, is that now? I was thinking we would round it up now, see what we've got, see if there's any corrections to what Marty was able to scribe, and then we just know we've got some really good next steps and a conversation to continue. So Marty, does that work for you?
Sure.
Awesome. Great. I'm going to stop share. That was really useful conversation, really on point. Thank you, everybody. Spot on.
So I just put the project number in the first column, then who is on from each project for staff, and then alignment with committees. And then I was writing in some notes in the last column, but the first one was the J-pop. And in terms of staff, Barry, Paul, Kayla is what I have there. And it aligns with the IPRTF steering committee. Kayla?
I just want to reflect, I think maybe that's where we were at the initial part of the conversation on J-pop, and then the conversation sort of morphed and we became more clear that it was the IPRTF sort of as the lead role for J-pop, with the executive just being a member of the J-pop.
In terms of staff involvement, say it again, or what do you feel needs to change here?
Yeah, so I think the J-pop's a subcommittee of the IPRTF, the same as the Behavioral Health Systems Committee, Legal and Justice Systems Committee. So the exec staff doesn't really have sort of like facilitation, sort of, this is a subcommittee of the IPRTF that calls on the J-pop, but that we believe that the consultants, the IPRTF itself, are sort of the ones holding that work.
Mm-hmm. But isn't the place where the committee that is kind of doing the work with and overseeing the J-pop and doing that kind of communication is the steering committee, and then it goes to IPRTF as a whole, like all these, okay.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna shift gears.
Yeah.
Marty, just stick that over, you cut and paste, stick it over in the notes. We'll go back and double check on stuff. And thank you so much. All we're doing right now is saying we're gonna capture it. If there's corrections, we'll work that out after the meeting because we want to get to these committee reports. But let's just scan the doc and just acknowledge how amazing Marty is to be able to try to capture all this on the fly. So just scan it down a little bit, Marty. See, we can see the whole thing through item 5.
Oh, just make it a little smaller.
Yeah. Or just scan down so we can all see our work. So we've got some good leadership there. We've got some good notes, and we can double check against the recording as well. So I think you guys have done awesome today, just really insightful and clear. And I'm so glad people are tuned in and paying attention to the stuff that's on the plan. So personally, I feel really excited and happy that we are on track as much as we are. That is awesome. So I think, yeah, Perry, one comment there, and then we should shift to the committee reports.
Yep, super quick. Thanks so much, Marty. And yes, I've worked with Marty in the past, and you're absolutely correct in your description. Erica is spelled with a K. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hold her, accountable. So, and in yeah, in that data 3, Marty, if you would maybe put Melora after Erica. Lynette Bennett is going to support the process, but Melora is going to be more directly involved in it. So keep Lynette's name, but Melora is in that one as well.
Okay.
And Melora only has one L the last time I looked, but I'm not entirely sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thank you all so much. So let's shift gears. I'm going to turn it back to the chairs. This was awesome. And let's get those committee reports to happen, yeah? So
great.
Marty,
thank you so much. All right. Heather, do you want me to do this, or do you want to take over?
You have great Wi-Fi. If you want to do it, I would be grateful.
All right, you are welcome. All right, let's start with the steering committee. Barry, do you have a report for us?
Barry had to leave the meeting, so he is not here at this time.
Okay, all right. Let's see, steering committee. In the steering committee, we see, Heather and I proposed that we had written a report, and we were sharing it with the steering committee to get a thumbs up for content for this meeting, a process for this meeting. However, we had a discussion that, and Heather, I'm going to need you to help me articulate this correctly, but there was differing opinions on how to move the reporting that Heather and I had put together forward for the process for this current meeting that we're sitting in right now. We withdrew our proposal. We're going to work on it, and we came up with the idea of, instead for this meeting, to focus on the Justice Project implementation plan, which seemed like a good move forward. The reporting that I'm referring to that Heather and I are working on was around all that we have heard from our committees, from the council, over the last 4 months of asking how we can change our processes and focuses to better move forward with the work of the IPRTF with less overlap and less staff time involved. So Heather, am I missing anything important on that steering committee meeting?
I think it was a great meeting, worth a watch if you weren't there. And I think the plan is that the report will be circulated to the committees next, and we'll have a follow-up conversation with each committee, and then that will finalize into a report to the IPRTF. So still coming, and really it's a reflection back to all of you about your feedback and the opportunities for the work ahead, and trying to meet the needs of our county leadership, our county council, and the people engaged at this table, and the community, of course.
Okay, any questions from anyone on the steering committee meeting? And I cannot see faces, so, oh, there we go. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the Behavioral Health Committee. Dan, do you want to report out on that one?
Sure. Hey, Jill, can you elevate Steve? I see he's here as an attendee. Can you just elevate him to a panelist so he can chime in here in case I miss anything? Okay, I'll get started. So basically, the points that I wanted to make, our Behavioral Health Committee, we lost some key folks over the past year and a half, and we're in a process of rebuilding that committee, and to address the sheriff's questions in terms of providers and frontline folks, we are absolutely on point on that. We have our main captain for community paramedic from Bellingham, and one of our key lieutenants from Bellingham PD, as well as a private provider who's very engaged in the behavioral health care industry, and a retired primary care physician that Chuck is loaning us as part of his role there. And we are rebuilding that committee. So basically, the pipeline has to get rebuilt, and we have an eye towards trying to be more action oriented and having it less be like a come and listen to a presentation kind of meeting. I mean, I think those things are valuable, but that's at the end of the day, behavioral health was a leader, continues to be a leader in bringing forward programs like Grace Lead, alternate response team, and we want to continue on with that. I see a tremendous opportunity with our the future Division Street, well, the current and future Division Street vision in terms of what that could look like when the work center closes down, where the crisis relief center will be located, how to develop all those items, how to get people there. We have some good news from our friends at the Swinomish Tribe. They're moving forward on that program for opiate treatment and abatement. And so we'll see I'll have more to report, I guess, at probably our next meeting, hopefully. And I think I think all cylinders are firing correctly, or maybe it's pedals in rotation is the more Bellingham, style of how to describe this. But anyway, I think that we're moving in the right direction. And one of the key appointments was Stephen Gockley, who was voted in a unanimous vote as my co-chair. And as you all know, Stephen led this task force for some time, along with Jack Hovenier and I'm very excited to have him as my co-chair for the Behavioral Health Committee. And Stephen, I'll turn it over to you in case I missed anything. I don't know if you're there or not, or if your Wi-Fi is working, but your opportunity to say anything.
Yeah, I am here, Dan. Thank you, and appreciate
Yep.
the kind words. This was a good discussion today, and I appreciate being able to listen in. Dan's description of our conversations and our direction with the Behavioral Health Committee is accurate. I think today's conversation added some nuance to my thinking about this, and Dan and I can process this, but Dan has done a yeoman's job, you know, reseating the committee and focusing on the ground providers. At the same time, I hear a thread of interest from Kayla and Executive Sadhu in focusing on policy recommendations and so forth. And so I think there's a little bit of tension in that on the ground, sort of the flip side of lived experience, so to speak, in the service provision. I'm not sure those people are inclined toward policy formation exactly. And so I think we're going to have to work through the hopes and expectations for recommendations out of the committee, but we can do that. We'll just need to talk that out and maybe even seat a couple more people, Dan. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, and just to follow up and close real quick here, some of the folks that we have, they're 10-hour-a-day people that are working the line, and they're not going to be able to be generative in that aspect. So to Stephen's point, it's going to be a balancing act of finding the right blend of folks who can provide policy recommendations, but then have those recommendations vetted by the people who do the work. And I think that's the blend, the mix that we're going for here. And it's it's an art, it's not a science for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there that we are very intentional in how we're working towards this. And with that, I'll conclude end of committee report.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Stephen. I appreciate your leadership on the committee. So let's see, Raylene, would you like to report? I do want to note that it is 10:49 and we still have public comment. If you and then Perry can keep your comments as brief as possible to give some time for the public. Raylene, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. We had two meetings, July 9th and August 13th. July 9th was a pretrial services presentation from Alan Epps, who is the coordinator for that under Stephanie Kraft. They also discussed the differences between pretrial services in Superior Court versus pretrial services in district and municipal courts. It's a great presentation, so people that are interested can watch that and see the notes as I'm trying to keep this quick. One quick comment on that. Judge Freeman was the assistant for the pretrial services committee, and that has now been replaced by Judge Jones. So that's just a note because it was Judge Garrett. She retired. It's cycling, but it's moving forward in a good manner. So just wanted to note that. Then on the August 13th meeting, we discussed the JPOP section number 13. So Holly and Marty, you may be interested in that conversation. It was very robust. We discussed things that can be changed in the court system and how we can try to move cases forward. Judge Jones discussed that they've been working on the court rules, which will be going into effect on September 1st, and reached out to all the stakeholders to determine what things could be done to move continuances. Sheriff Tanksley asked to be informed on the next meeting so that he could also participate. They will be changing the rule on 24 months continuances of being allowed to an 18-month, so that's shortening that time. Also, a big thank you to Heather Flaherty for her work with the prosecutor's office on a report on who's in custody, who's being held, why are they being held, That information was excellent, and I encourage all of you to review that information. And I believe she was working with Eric on what she could actually send out to the group as a whole, because it may help us as we move forward. I'm going to wrap it up there so that Harry has a little bit of time. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Very good, Raylene. Thank you so much. And you did mention reviewing video of meetings. And I just want to say that Jill takes excellent notes. And while I would not discourage anybody from watching video of the entire meeting, her notes have been very helpful to me in reviewing each meeting. Perry, please go ahead. And if you can keep it to 2 minutes, that would be great.
Absolutely. We held our subcommittee for the Crisis Stabilization Facility on the 15th, Thursday. And it reported out on, we maintained data, particularly of a number of different pieces, but particularly in terms of the utilization, bed utilization. As of the end of Q2, the withdrawal management bed utilization was at 78%. So feeling pretty good about that. Also, the mental health stabilization bed year to date is about 69%. We're continuing to work with that, and we're continuing to see pretty effective use of the beds at this point in time. That, I think, really connects back to Melora and I meet regularly with the providers, working on projects. A couple of them that are pretty exciting actually is that they have opened the lobby of the crisis stabilization facility. That has not been true historically. And so now during working hours, lobby is open. There's a receptionist that addresses folks and gets them where they need to be. So and there's a number of pieces that are going along with that, but just really excited that the providers are absolutely putting their best foot forward in terms of focusing on that and the utilization. Dan Hamill made reference to it. I always report just a little bit of information about our 23-hour crisis release center, working really closely with the executive's office in that regard. That process is moving forward, and RFP is prepared to be released very soon relative to providers, potential providers. And we wanted that to occur because we really wanted to be able to communicate with those individuals relative to facility design. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you, Perry. That's excellent. And thanks for putting the 23-hour report in there as well. Appreciate your committee's work on that. Okay. Is there any other business before we move on to public comment? I am not seeing any hands up. So, Jill, where are we with folks who may be commenting? Do we have members of the public?
Sure, we do have several attendees with us today. If any of you would like to speak to the full task force, please virtually raise your hand now. We do have one hand raised. Dean White, go ahead and speak to the task force.
Thank you. Dean White, I'm actually a part-time special project manager for the Health and Community Services Department. I wanted to just bring the group's attention to a resource that may be helpful in dealing with Project 5 around coordination and communication between organizations. There's an ad hoc group of agencies that's been working diligently for the last 3 years and longer in some ways. It's called the Whatcom Resource Information Collaborative. And they've created a framework for how to establish an infrastructure for sharing information, both at the organizational and the individual case level. And then they focused initially on how that kind of an infrastructure might work for the population of children and families of children 0 to 5. But they have a framework that really looks at the potential for that same model being applied to a variety of populations, and I would think including the population of adults, particularly who are involved with both criminal justice and human service organizations. And Christy Sleddy from the Whatcom Family and Community Network is the kind of the facilitator and coordinator for that team. They've had some support financially from the county, but I think they've been really doing a lot of their work on a shoestring, and it's really valuable material that I think would contribute greatly to thinking through how to accomplish Project 5. And so I'd really encourage you to reach out to Christy and see what she may be able to contribute to this particular project.
Very good, Dean. Thank you very much for your comment. Are there any other hands up, Jill?
I'm not seeing any other hands up. If you would like to speak to the task force, please virtually raise your hand. And no additional hands are raised. Thank you.
Very good. Well, and with that, we'll bring to a close the IPRTF and Law and Justice Council meeting for August 19th, 2024. Thank you, everybody, for your inputs. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to next steps.